Hello guys, welcome to the next session of developing e-commerce application from scratch using Angular and Spring Boot. In the last session we discussed on how we can configure the Angular material library in our Angular project. In this session we are going to see how we can replace one form, which is our login form, with the help of Angular material library components. So if you see like the navigation bar that we are currently using and also the login and logout button in the right hand side corner, all these things are coming from the Angular material UI library. But there is one form which is a login form that we are still using with the help of Bootstrap. So in this session we are going to see like how we can replace these input fields with the help of Angular material input fields, and also we will replace these login button with the help of Angular material button. Rest of the functionality, like whatever it is working right now, it will be working exactly same. We will just replace these UI components. So before replacing, let me just first of all show you whether it is working or not. So make sure your UI code is running and also your backend code is running. So we have to make sure that. And then let me just come to these inside the backend. Let me just come to these services package and user services. If you see, we have the two different roles, and we have one admin role and we have a user role. So let me just use these user credentials and let me just try to log in with the help of these user credentials. So Raj123 and Raj@123 are the credentials. So let me just come to the UI and let me just use Raj123 and Raj@123 and let me click on login. Now if you see, the login is working perfectly fine, and if you see, the logout button is also coming from the Angular material UI library. So let me click on logout now. So we are now back to the home page. So let me click on login again. Now we have to replace these Bootstrap UI components with the Angular material UI components. So let me just quickly show you how we can do this. So let me just go to the VS Code and let me just open one file under the src and under the app, and we have to go to the app.module.ts file. In this, first of all, we have to include two different modules. First one is a mat form field module and second one is a mat input module. So let me just quickly show you why do we need to like import those modules. So if I just go to the Google Chrome again and if I just go to the Angular material official site, so we have one option inside a left hand side. So we have a one option that is a form field. So we have the different form fields over here. So if you just go to the examples, you will see a lot of examples of the form fields and their appearance. So the form field that I like is basically the last one, which is a outline form field. So if you just want to use these form fields, like any of these form fields, then we have to use the import statement. So first of all, we have to import these form fields. So if you see inside this API section, you will see the steps that we have to do before using any of these form field. So right now, if you see, then we have to import this mat form field module. So that's the reason we have to just import it. So let me just copy this line first of all, which is a import mat form field module, and let me just come to the VS Code again and let me just paste it inside app.module.ts. So previously we have imported a button module and also a toolbar module, which is nothing but our navigation bar. So similarly, we have to import a form field module. Alongside, we have to import one more module, which is a mat input module. So let me just use mat input module, which comes from @angular /common or material /input, like this, and let me just give the semicolon at the end. Now again, we have to just give the same thing or same module names inside our imports array. So let me just use mat form field, and also we have to use a mat input field or mat input module, like this. So let me just import the mat input module. Now our import things are done. Now we can close this file, and now we can just go to the src app, and we have one component which is a login component. So we have to just go to the login component, and inside this we have to go to the login.component.html. Now if you see, like previously we have used a form and we have used a input fields, and we have, if you see these classes, you will get to know that all these classes are a bootstrap classes, and that's why the appearance of these input fields and all these buttons is looking like the bootstrap UI components, but we want to replace it with the Angular Material UI components. So let me just quickly show you how we can do this. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to just go to the examples, and you will see hell lot of examples over here. So we have the 4 different appearances. Whichever you like, you can just use it like this is your own choice. So if you just click on this view code button, then you will see the code for all the different form field appearances. So as I said, I like the last one, which is a outline form field. So you will see the code for this matte outline form field. So you can just copy this code. So if you see, there is a paragraph tag, p tag, so you can just avoid this p tag and you can just directly copy this matte form field. And let me just copy this code. Let me just come to the VS Code and let me just paste it inside our form tag. So let me just paste it over here like this, and let me just first of all format this. So to format this, what we can do, we have to just select the text, and we have one option that is format selection. So let me click on this, and again let me just save this code. So let's keep it as it is everything. Let's go to the VS Code, let's go to the Google Chrome, and let's see. First of all, let me just check whether my application is running or not. So if you see, like we have some errors as of now, but what we can do is we can just stop the current application and we can just start it again. So reason why we are getting error over here is because we have added the new modules in app.module.ts file, and whenever we add any new modules, we have to make sure that we are stopping the current instance of our application and we are restarting it. So that's the reason we were getting the error, but as soon as I restarted the application, we are not getting any error. So now let me just go to the Google Chrome again, and let me just come to the application. Now if you see, we are able to see a form like outlined form field on the UI, but still we are not be able to see the icon. So if you see, like at the end we have some smiley icon over here, but as of now I just don't want these icons because those are not needed right now. So we will just remove these icons, but rest of the things is looking perfectly fine. So let me just go to the VS Code again, and let me just remove this line which is a matte icon, and let me just remove the line, and let's see how it is looking right now. So let me save this code, let me go back to the VS Code, and everything is looking perfectly fine. Now we have to increase the length as well, but let's keep all these things aside right now. Let's focus on the functionality first. So let me just go to the VS Code again, and let me just copy the same matte form field, and let me just paste it after that. So the first one will be for the username and second one will be for the password. And now let me just save this code again, and let's see on the UI. So on the UI we are getting everything perfectly fine. So we have the 2 different form fields. Now we have to replace a button as well. So let me just use a matte button. So if you just go to the Google Chrome again, and if you just go to the button section again inside this Angular material, then again you will see the hell lot of buttons. So I'm interested in this raised button, so I'm just going to use this primary raised button. So if I just click on the view code again, then you will again see like the code. So we are interested in this raised button, and specifically in this primary raised button. So let me just copy this line for primary raised button. Let me just come back to the VS Code, and let me just paste it after this second form field. So let me just save this now, and let me just come back to the Google Chrome. Let's see what happens. Now we are able to see this button as well. Now if you observe, for the button we have like previously we have imported button module. So that's the reason we don't have to import it again. But if you are using it for very first time, so we have to make sure that we are importing in the app.module.ts. Now everything is looking perfectly fine. Then only few things that we have to do is we have to just add this ng model and name and id property. So let me just copy these. So this is basically the old values that we were using. So we have to just copy the ng module, name and id. So let me copy these and let me come to the very first mat form field, and for input, so if you see we have the input tag. So for the input, let me just paste it, and again let me just format this code so that it will be more easy to find out every single thing. So for the username, we have used it perfectly fine. So we have to just give a label as, let's suppose, a username, and for the placeholder also, let me just make it as a username like this, and for the hint also, let me just make it as a username like this. And similarly, the ng model we have to add for the password, name and id also we have to add. So let me just come bit below, and if you see we have the ng model, the name is equals to user password, id is equals to user password. Let me copy these values and let me come to the second mat form field, and let me just paste it over here like this, and let me again format the code. And again we have to just give some correct values over here for the label and all. So let me give it as password, then let me just copy this same value and let me just give it as a placeholder password, and for the hint also let me just give it as a password like this. Then for the button, let me just first of all make it as a type is equals to submit, because this is a submit button, because we are using a form, so we have to make its type as a submit. And let me just change the text and make it as a login like this, and now let me just save the code. Let me just come back to the UI. Let's see whether we are able to get any changes. So if you see, now we are able to get the username, password and the correct text on the button, which is a login. Now what we can do is we can just first of all remove these old input fields and button so that we can test our application. So let me just remove these input fields, the old input fields and old button. So let me just comment it out, and now let me just save this code. Let me just come back and let's see whether our form is working or not. So let me just give it as Raj123 and Raj@123, and let me just click on login. Now if you see, our login form is working perfectly fine. Let me click on logout again, and if I just click login again, we will be able to see the form. Now we want to make it like our form is working perfectly fine. Now we want to make it looking more beautiful. So let's try to make it more beautiful. So let's apply some styles. So let me come back to the VS Code again, and over here, if I just come to the mat form field, let me just apply some styles, or maybe we can just apply a class. Let's try to apply the class like w-100. Let's see whether it is working or not. So yeah, if you see, w-100 class is working perfectly fine. Now this w-100 is basically a class which is provided by the Bootstrap. So which is basically means that width is equals to 100%. Now if you ask me, so I basically like to use a Bootstrap classes whenever required, because using a Bootstrap class is really very easy task, so we can avoid lengthy codes. But as we have discussed, we are going to use a Angular Material UI library components. So all the components we will use will be coming from Angular Material library, but if we needed, we can use a Bootstrap class as well. As of now, we are using this width 100 class. So similarly, if other classes are also required, we can just use the Bootstrap class. But from styling but from look and feel perspective, the components that we will use, all the components will be from the Angular Material. So in short, the components that we will use will be from Angular Material, and if required we will use a bootstrap classes. So that is the main thing that I just wanted to highlight. Now let me just copy this class is equals to w-100 and let me paste it for our password form field, and also let me just give the same for our button as well. And now let me just save this code. Let's see what happens on the UI. Now on UI, if you see, everything is looking excellent, and I mean the styles are exactly same as whatever we were using the previously, but the only difference is this time we are using the Angular material UI components. Let me just give Raj123 and Raj at the rate 123 again. Let me click on login. Now we are able to log in. Let me just click on log out and we are logged out. Let me click on login again. So everything is looking perfectly fine and everything is working perfectly fine. Now only thing that we have left back is configuring our home page path. Now if you see, like currently my path is /login, and let me just click on login again. So let me just click on login. Now if you see, we are logged in and now my path is /user. If I just click on logout, then my path becomes /home. But if you see the Angular documentation, we don't have to specify any path for the home, because this is a home page, and by default whenever we launch the application we should be able to launch on the home page. So that's the reason we don't have to give any path for the home page. But as of now I have used a /home as a path for my home page. So this is a bit wrong thing that I have done, so we have to just correct this as well. So let me just click on the let me just go back to the VS Code and let me just go to the file which is a src app, and we are interested in app routing.module.ts file. Now if you just go bit below, you will be able to see one array which is of roots array, and if you see, we have one path which is a home path for the home component. So we have to remove this home text from here, and we have to keep only the single colons or single commas over here. And now let me just click on save. Now if you just go back to the go back to the Google Chrome, you will see some errors right now. So whenever if I just click on logout, then on the console you will be able to see one error, because right now when we click on logout button, it basically tries to go to the /home path, but as of now the /home path doesn't exist because we have just removed this. So that's the reason if you just open the console you will be able to get one error. So we have to resolve the error as well. So first of all, let me just go to the header component. Inside the header component, let me just go to the header.component.html. In this we have one button that is called as logout. So whenever we click on the logout button, we call one function which is a logout function. So if you just go to the header.component.ts file, in this you will see the logout function, and if you see in this we are just using a this.router.navigate and we are using a /home. So we have to remove the home from here and we have to just keep a slash. Make sure we have to just keep a slash. So I'm just repeating, we have to just keep a slash. We don't have to remove the empty empty single colons. We have to just use a slash like this. And now let me just save this code. And now let me just go back to the Google Chrome and let me just click on login again. Then let me just use Raj123, Raj at the rate 123. Let me click on login. Let me click on logout, and everything is working perfectly fine. Now if you see, whenever we use a localhost :4200, by default we are on our home page. So we don't have to give any special path like /home to jump on our home page. So whenever you will run the application, you will be by default jumping onto the home page itself. Now only one thing that I just observed is, like, whenever we click on the login button and whenever we try to fill any password, so this password is basically a visible, right? So it is just a normal text box. It is not a text box which is basically being designed for the password. So this password I just don't want to show. I just want to show it as a hidden, or maybe not a hidden, but I just don't want to show the text itself. So to do this, what we have to do, we have to just go to the VS Code, and let me just go back to the login.component.html, and in this, let me just go back to the password field, and over here let me just add just a type of this input field. So let me just make it as input type is equals to password, type is equals to password, like this. And now let me just save this code. Now let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and this time if you see, we are not able to see the text, and which is working perfectly fine. So this is how we can replace the existing Bootstrap UI login form with the help of Angular Material UI library. So I hope you got an idea around this one. If you still have any question, let me know into a comment section, and I will try my best to help you out in that case. And I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you in the next session.